You probably do not need as much money as social media tells you to look successful, but you may need more invested than you think to feel free. That is the uncomfortable middle ground most people avoid. They want the dividend dream, but they do not want to price the life they are asking dividends to support. So they ask the exciting version of the question, how much do I need invested to live off dividends? But they skip the ugly version, how expensive have I allowed my normal life to become? If you like simple personal finance breakdowns with real examples, real math, and no hype, subscribe to the channel before we go deeper. The formula is almost rude in how simple it is. At a 4% dividend yield, $25,000 invested can pay about $1,000 a year. 100,000 can pay about 4,000, 500,000 can pay about 20,000, 1 million can pay about 40,000. But the number only matters when it has a life attached to it. If your life costs $40,000 a year, then at a 4% yield, you need about $1 million invested to cover it with dividends. If your life costs $60,000 a year, the number rises to $1.5 million. If your life costs $80,000, now you are looking at $2 million. That is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to show you that dividend freedom is not one number. It is your lifestyle translated into invested capital. The dangerous part is that most people only measure expenses by whether they can survive them this month. Can I make the payment? Can I cover the rent? Can I keep the card from maxing out? Can I get to the next paycheck without something breaking? That kind of thinking is understandable, especially when life is tight, but it also hides the long-term cost of the life you are building. A $500 monthly car payment does not feel like $150,000 invested, but at a 4% yield, that is roughly what your portfolio would need to support it forever. A $2,000 rent payment becomes $24,000 a year. At 4%, that points towards $600,000 invested just to cover housing. This is why lifestyle inflation is so dangerous. It does not only raise your current bills, it raises the amount of money you need invested before work becomes optional. A raise can help, but only if your spending does not learn how to run faster than your income. Many people earn more at 35 than they did at 25, but somehow feel less free because every improvement in income became a new fixed expense. Comment notes below and check the pinned comment. I'll leave a simple dividend number sheet there so you can test your own numbers without guessing. The goal is not to feel guilty about every bill. The goal is to understand which bills are quietly raising the price of your freedom. This is where a lot of people make the wrong move. They see the portfolio number they need, feel overwhelmed, and start looking for a dividend yield high enough to make the math easier. A 4% yield feels too slow, so they chase 8%, then 10%, then 12%. And for a moment, the spreadsheet looks beautiful. But the market does not give away income for free. If a yield looks extremely high, there is usually a reason hiding underneath it. Maybe the stock price collapsed, maybe the dividend is about to be cut, maybe the company is paying out more cash than it can safely afford. Maybe investors already see trouble that the beginner does not recognize yet. This is the yield trap. The income looks attractive because the danger has already started. A person can collect a few dividend payments and still lose far more when the asset falls, the dividend gets reduced, and the supposed shortcut turns into a quiet financial wound. That is why dividend investing is not just about income, it is about durability. The better question is not which investment pays the most today. The better question is which investment has a realistic chance of still paying, still surviving, and still making sense years from now. A dividend that lasts can build confidence. A dividend that collapses can teach a lesson you paid too much to learn. So the first step is not picking a random dividend stock because someone online sounded confident. The first step is knowing your number, not the dream number, not the number that sounds impressive, the real number your life costs every year. Write down rent or mortgage, groceries, utilities, gas, insurance, debt payments, subscriptions, taxes, medical costs, repairs, and the expenses that never appear in your perfect budget but always appear in real life. Then multiply the monthly number by 12. That is the annual income your portfolio would eventually need to produce if dividends were going to carry the whole thing. After that, break the number down. Do not stare at the entire mountain until you feel defeated. Choose one bill first. If your phone bill costs $1,200 a year at a 4% yield, that points toward about $30,000 invested. If your groceries cost $6,000 a year, that points toward about $150,000 invested. These numbers are not small, but they are useful because they turn vague financial anxiety into something you can actually measure. Comment notes below if you want the simple dividend number sheet I'll leave it in the pinned comment so you can compare your bills with different portfolio sizes. Once you see the numbers, the goal stops being mysterious. It becomes a series of targets, and targets are easier to chase than fantasies. The next move is to stop treating dividend investing like a fantasy number and start treating it like a bill-by-bill replacement plan. Choose one expense, find its yearly cost, divide that number by a realistic yield. That gives you a target that your brain can actually understand. Then automate the investing while the goal still feels boring. Boring is useful here. Boring is what keeps the plan alive after excitement leaves. Reinvest the dividends while you are building, because every early payment you spend is a small worker you sent home before it had time to hire another one. And be careful with the yield. If the income looks too high, slow down. The market may not be offering you a gift, it may be showing you a warning. The deeper lesson is that living off dividends is not just about having enough invested. It is about building a life that your investments can realistically support without being crushed by lifestyle inflation. The smaller and cleaner your required life becomes, the sooner your portfolio can matter. So before you ask how to find a higher dividend yield, ask which part of your life is making the freedom number bigger than it needs to be. Comment notes below and check the pinned comment. I'll leave the dividend number sheet there so you can run the math calmly and choose your first target. Dividend freedom does not begin when money replaces work completely. It begins when one ordinary bill loses its grip, and you finally understand that ownership can carry what pressure used to carry.